Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Okay, you'll have to excuse this shadow over here. It's late in the afternoon, so I don't have that natural light that I usually get in the morning when I make my videos. So we're going to have this funny little light happening. What I wanted to do, the reason I'm doing an afternoon video, is I want to get these last few little things stitched down because I really want to glue some of this work down to the paper bag, and then it can dry overnight under something nice and flat, and it'll be ready then for me to play in the morning if I can get that to dry. So I just want to add firstly a couple more little elements to the pocket, and I've just had this scrap floating around on the desk as I was cleaning up, and I thought I'm going to add it to the top edge of this pocket like it's a little tab. Of course it's not really a tab because it's a pocket, but I thought it might be a nice little spot that we could pin a little charm. And like I said, I had this little bit of fabric, so I decided that's where it was going to go. For no reason other than maybe we could even sew a button there. I don't know. So I'm just going to put a little running stitch around that as a decorative element. And then it'll also aid to secure the piece of fabric. I checked all my measurements as well, so I've got a few marks on the cover or the inside piece. The other thing is, if you recall in the last video, I grabbed a scrap of calico and cut a piece out of it thinking that it was just a scrap, but it turned out it was the inside of our cover. So instead of ripping another piece, I'm going to patch it and create a detail at this top corner. But before we look at that, I lined up my pocket with the edge and I marked it here, which is at the 7-inch line, and if we fold our 12 by 12 paper, that will be at 6 inches. So that gives us plenty of wriggle room at here of 1 inch for pages that expand and tabs and things like that. So I'm happy with the size of the pocket. I did trim a little bit off either side, but that will work. I've allowed 1.5 inches for the spine, and that should be plenty of room to stitch in 3 signatures or 2 signatures, whatever that may be. Then we've got another 7 inches to there, and then we have a good 2 inches for the flap that will, secure the actual journal. So I'm thinking now of just stitching in an extra little doily here. So I've just pinned it. Just felt like it needed a couple more little elements, and I figured I had the time to do it, so I just pinned them there. And I just want to stitch this little guy down as another little layer. Oops. Okay, let's try that again. And I've got the little doily just peeking off the bottom of the pocket a little bit, so it'll be sort of hanging out the side of the journal. So I'm just going to whip around here, and I'm hoping that I can get all these little bits stitched on, and then I can glue some of these pieces onto the paper bag. And if that can dry, well then I'm rocking and rolling ready for tomorrow, and I can start sort of thinking about the papers, the signatures and things like that, which would be nice because it feels like I have been stitching at this for days, which I have. When you look at each episode's an hour, it does. Time does fly. Okay. So like I said, I've just got that peeking over the edge there a little bit. Just a bit cute. Okay, just going to scoot into the centre there. A couple little stitches around the centre. That'll really make sure that that's nice and secure to the pocket. Lovely. Decided not to get a lace for the top edge of the pocket, which was one idea I was tossing around. I just don't think it's needed. Due to the fact now that I've added this little tab, which I think is something a bit different. I've never done that before. I've whacked on that there. We've got a little message. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that little collaged pocket. So that's finished. Now the tab was pretty much finished, but I did want to add to the back of it this little doily element. So I'm hoping that I can sneak around and pop a few stitches in that, then that's ready to go. So as the tab sort of flips open, this is the underside and the pussycat's the top side. So I'm just going to stitch another little doily element. I'm going to try not to have my needle come through. I did manage to get my desk tidied up too, so I feel quite like I don't mind a messy desk when you're in amongst it all, but when you've been working on a project for, I don't know what episode we're up to, probably episode 8, maybe. Yeah, I think. I've lost track. That's 8 days that my desk has just been a pile of lace. A pile of lace and fabric snippets to do with this project. So I really wanted just to bring it all together and move on to tidying up, at least looking at what I can do next in the way of the paper side of things, because I think we've done enough in the way of collaging and things. Now this back cover, I have left this free because I really want to create a project for her to do on the back cover. And because I've cut into this top corner, I'm going to patch it with a piece of fabric from the front. As you can see, it's pinned into position, so that's missing in behind there. I should probably go and cut a new piece of fabric, but I don't think I need to. I like the fact that there's this little decorative area there. So I've just pinned the fabric there for now. I'll stitch on the doily as well, and then I'll have a little look at see what else we do there. That might even be enough because we have this really fancy pocket as well, so it's not like there's not plenty happening. And I plan to make a ephemera folder for her as well, which will slide into that pocket, so it should look quite interesting on that inside cover. And then the back cover will be where she can create something as part of one of the activities within the journal. And because it's fabric, I'm thinking that I might stitch. Just thinking, okay, let's just talk this through. We've got the back cover will be glued down to the packet, the bag. We're going to have a piece of embroidery created by Edie and adhered to that. How do we have her attach her embroidery? Do we just have her glue it down, which is easy, just using a glue stick. We can easily glue it. How do we have the fabric stay there in the meantime? Because we will create like a panel. Do we I could create a tab across the top here, like a band that is stitched on, and then that can be pinned to it so it can flap, but it's attached to that. Problem is but that's not a problem. I guess it could be then removable and it's pinned in. So as she stitches and adds to it, it's got a point of attachment. Do I put a button? Oh, nearly cut that, didn't think there. I just wanted to knock that off. Just thinking. Haven't thought that far yet. Or do I use a decorated clip? You know, not a bull clip, but there's these gorgeous clips out there. So that's finished now. That's ready to attach to the journal cover and yeah, glue down. So that's all good. Now I just want to stitch this. So I want to come in a little bit. Whoops. Need to put a knot in my cotton. So I'm going to attempt to put a running stitch around this edge, which will attach this floral piece of fabric to the background as a patch. So this is a good way if you've got a gorgeous piece of linen or something, but it's just not enough to get your project completed, like the size is not enough. This is a really good way of extending your fabrics by patching in some additional fabrics. And if they're decorative florals, it can look really pretty. Okay. Now we can come up this side. All right. Alrighty. Up that side. Then we've attached it And we just need to then carry on along that edge just to make it look like it is all part of the process. Such a pretty piece of fabric, this one. I've used it so many times in projects, and I'm just down to my last few bits, and I can't even remember where I got it from. I think it was in a pack of fabric where they just put random florals together. I've embroidered it, I've done all sorts with this one. And of course I won't have enough cotton to get around the whole perimeter. So I'm going to just go as far as I can, hoping that it's enough, but it won't be. So I'll just have to grab another piece, scoot down this edge. Just won't quite make it. I'm going to end it off. Ow. Ouch. I'll knot it off now. And we'll get another piece. Okay, last little bit. Then we just need to secure that doily. That was the big one I wanted on the front somewhere, but I just couldn't quite find a spot. So I was pleased that I could tuck it up in this corner. Okay, now I can end that off, and we are ready to do the doily. I'm sure there'll be other things we'll do to this cover and that, but I think we're to the point where we can attach everything now and move on. So I will need to do a little bit of sewing machine work on that pocket, attaching it, because I want the pocket to be nice and strong. So I will need to jump on my sewing machine and stitch that down before I do any gluing. So I will need to pause the video. How yummy this is. It's just such an eclectic piece. Perfect for a little girl, because then they can do anything. There's no rules. I'm going to try and do this journal a little bit differently too. I usually gather all my papers together and then stitch them in and then start the decorating process. But this time I'm going to do the pages individually, I think, and keep them away from the cover until I'm ready at the end, because I want to have the freedom of gluing and stitching and all sorts of things, because it's such an eclectic sort of piece. It's not like you can go through and stitch all the pages and then come back through and add pockets. I sort of feel like it needs to be made as separate pages, loose, where I'm usually pretty quick to stitch them in. And at the end of the day, I don't know how thick each page is going to be with goodies. Therefore, how do I know if my signatures are going to be right for what I do? I sort of don't want any restrictions. Does that make sense? I might find I only need 2 signatures. I might find that I want to do a Midori style, not a stitched in pamphlet style spine. I might want to do one of each. I just don't know. I might want to add beads and feathers, and I really don't know. So I'm thinking I'm going to keep it as loose as I can and just let it evolve, which is not normal for me. I usually decide on my spine, how many pages, how many signatures, stitch it all in, yada, yada, yada. Away I go. But this time, I want to just be a little more free to move, because each area through the journal is potentially an activity. So I want to know that I can put a nice deep pocket in and put in 6 pieces of watercolour paper for her to paint. I might even decide to find a watercolour palette that will fit in the journal. Like there's some little slimline ones out there. Maybe I can add that somehow to a pocket or a pull-out. Now, if my signatures are stitched in and I've only got 1.5 inches for a spine, well, it might just not work. I know I want to add doilies and fabric to this, as just to have texture through it. So as she flips through the journal, there's a beautiful doily. I want to have a chat to her grandmother, and maybe there's some doilies within the family that could be added to her journal. I just don't know. And if everything's stitched in, you know, it makes it a little tricky. So that's my theory when it comes to the construction of the journal. But I think I can go to the stage of gluing it all down to the paper. I think we're ready for that. Now, I've gone around the perimeter of that piece, but I do want to come through the center because it is a big doily and it will be flapping in the breeze there a little bit. So I want to, oops, what's that thread from? Or just the bottom. So I just want to come through there. Make sure that that's nice and secure. Like so. Sorry, I've gone all quiet. Don't have many stories to tell you today. So I've been just busy doing things. All day's been problem solving, all day. One of the stores, their computers have decided to pack it in. Not all, but a couple. And they are old. So we've been hunting around to see what sort of computer we can buy that can hook up to our current system so that the guys have a register. And this particular one that has packed it in, there's 3 others in the store that are the same. So we're thinking, what's the odds that we will replace the faulty one and the others will go? So do we just buy 3 and replace the 3 out in anticipation? Because, you know, we're coming into our busy season, so the last thing we need is computers not working. So I think we will need to bite the bullet. If one has died, you can guarantee the other ones aren't far behind. Well, that's the theory anyway. So we thought we were onto a good deal, and we thought we had found a fantastic little replacement computer that would do the trick, because it's sort of a dummy terminal. It's a dummy computer that we have a big server that really holds all the data and the programs and everything, and it's just purely a terminal that has the register attached, but the server does everything. So we don't need a full-on computer. We just need nearly a student type computer. And we thought we'd found these great computers, fairly good price. And you know the saying, if it's too cheap, there's something wrong. And we've got them in the shopping basket, and we're just about to order them. And my husband was reading the fine print to make sure that it had at least the right power and was the right, you know, the right thing. And in the fine print, it says that it is a Microsoft cracked program. So they were advertising that it was already preloaded with Microsoft, which technically we don't need because we have that system on our server. So the terminal just uses that. But to get it at least to operate, you've got to have an operating system. I'm probably getting a bit technical here, and I don't even understand what I'm really saying. But anyway, you've got to have an operating system, so at least it turns on and starts and is able to at least start communicating with you. So you have Microsoft, a very basic one on the thing, on the computer. Well, this is a pirated Microsoft program, is how we read it. So if we had bought that and installed it into our business, and Microsoft knocked on our door and said, please show us the license for all of these computers, we would have been in a bit of trouble. So, you know, when they say it's too good to be true, the price is too good to be true. Well, it wasn't even that good, but anyway. Pays to read the fine print. Dodgy, dodgy. Okay, I think I've got that nicely secure. That's not going anywhere. All right, let's just get ourselves all straight. Got a bit skew-whiffed. So now what I need to do is I need to jump on my sewing machine and stitch into position this pocket, so that when I attach the panel to the bag, it's nice and secure. And I'm going to use my sewing machine because I just don't want it to be, you know, flip-flopping around, and I want to be able to put things in it and it be nice and secure. So that's the next task. All right, then I'm going to come back. I was going to put this heart somewhere, actually. I thought I might find a home for it up here, but I'm still not digging it. I don't mind it, actually. No, it's getting a bit thick. Leave the heart. All right, guys, I'm going to pause this video. I'm going to jump on my sewing machine and I'm going to stitch around that pocket so it's now attached. Then I can have a look at gluing all this down to the actual paper bag. So I will be back. Won't be a moment. Hi guys, I'm back. Okay, so I have stitched on the pocket and I just used a zigzag stitch, and it was one of those 3-step zigzag stitches. What I mean by that is instead of the usual zigzag, it's got 3 little stitches to make up the zigzag. I just find that that keeps things flatter. So instead of this typical zigzag where it gets all puckered in between, I make my sewing machine do 3 stitches within the zigzag. And it's just, I don't know, a better zigzag stitch, if that makes sense. So that pocket is now secure. So the next thing to do is glue onto the bag our piece. Now I did put a patch of paper here because the word dusk was seen through, and I think once I started gluing, I reckon I would see that word through that calico. So I decided to patch it with a bit of brown paper, and so that's done. I'm now going to apply my glue stick. You could use PVA glue, but I find this is just as good as long as I get plenty on my page. And being that it's got that blue tint to it, sort of makes it pretty easy to see where I've been. So I'm just going to do a section at a time. That way I'm not getting myself into a sticky, gluey mess. So I'm just going to anchor the one side. Taking my time. I will be stitching around as well, so it's not like it's going to sort of come apart at the edges by not having glue all to the edges, but at least through the center you want to make sure that you've got plenty of the glue. Okay, now I'm going to very carefully line up my edges because I had already drawn a line around the bag, so I sort of know where that needs to be. So I'm just going to pull that down a little bit because that's not right up that end. That should be a bit better. Oh, it's fiddly. That's why I don't glue the whole thing, because it takes a little bit of manipulating to get it right. So you want to just take your time, make sure your pockets are where you want them to be and not hanging off. I can feel the edge of that bag there, so that feels about right. That feels pretty good. That edge feels fine, and that edge feels fine. Now it's just a case of smoothing it out. Have I got a thread under there? No. Make sure that that's nicely adhered under that pocket, because the last thing we want is that to sort of be coming out. Feel any creases, get them out. Lovely. That feels pretty good. Okay, I think we can safely move on to the next stage. It'll be a bit trickier doing the cover section because it's a lot thicker with bits and pieces. This is easy because we've just got really the calico to sort of make sure we catch down. Just peel that back a little bit because I want to make sure that that has definitely got plenty of glue in there. This really is a simple way of doing it. You don't have to do this. You could have it free floating, but it tends to feel a bit odd in your fingers when you're holding your journal. It sort of feels like the cover is slipping around. So I'd sort of like to do this process. I think I've only done one journal where I haven't glued it down, and I must say I didn't like the feeling of it. Sort of felt like it was a cover jacket, not the cover. You know when there's a jacket around a book to protect it, a dust cover? That's what it felt like. That's pretty good. That's not going to go anywhere. Just get a little bit more glue there because it feels like it's got opportunities there to lift. Okay, so let's carry on. Just easing that down. And if everything's gone to plan, we should be relatively straight. But remember, it at the end of the day, it isn't a bag. It's not like a hard cover of a journal from a book. So there's going to be bumps and lumps and texture to it. It's part of the charm of using a bag. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Okay, lovely. It's got a nice feel about it, like it's going to be good. Okay, so now I think we can flip it over. And we're going to glue this one into position. What I might do, before I do that, I'm going to actually trim the excess off. Because what that is going to do is give me back my visible edge. Without that, I think I'd struggle putting this next piece on. So I'm just going to trim that back. I'm not going totally on the edge of that bag. I'm just back a little bit. I sort of want to get this done reasonably quickly so that then I can get some weight on it and leave it be. Because the more you fiddle with it, the more chance you have of getting air pockets. So if I can get it glued, and then I can come back later tonight and run the stitching around that edge, I'll be happy. And by morning, it should be ready to go. And if it's not, it doesn't matter because I can let it sit for the day in the sun and let that glue really set. But I will lie it in front of my sunny window, so even before I'm out of bed, that morning sun will dry, or at least heat it up to a point where it'll trigger the last of the gluing agents. Okay, so we've got it now down. I'm not too worried about the dusk word this time because so that needs to go. It won't be seen through. Okay. So I might start this side, I think. Just want to make sure that this edge is really, really correct. So let's get our glue on. And like I said, you could use PVA glue. I think the last lot I did PVA glue. But I use this as well a lot. And a couple of the journals I've actually used myself as art journals using this method of gluing, and they've come up really well and held up to being used in, you know, everyday life. The last thing you want is your journal failing. Plenty of glue. It's all lumpy and bumpy because we've got a pocket underneath. So just take your time. Okay, now let's see if we can line this one up. Degree of difficulty, high, but if we take our time, find our corners, it should be fine. Have a little look, and by trimming it I can really see how we're going, and it looks really good. Okay, now we just got to apply lots of pressure so that that glue catches that calico backing. I didn't get any X's on that actually. I did just think about doing that. Oh well. Pepper's at the window looking at me, so usually she's looking at me saying breakfast time. Now she's looking at me going dinner time. So that's pretty good. I'm happy with that. So now we should be able to just roll that back and sneak some more glue in. Got a hang of a mess of my glue. Look at that. Lovely. Oh, it'll be so good to feel the cover. It's a big one. It's going to be a big journal. That's great. It gives her plenty of room to play. I haven't yet found an image of a mannequin, so I need to do a little bit of research and see if I can find an image of a mannequin, like a female form, so that she can this one glue is slightly different. She can dress the mannequin within the journal, because remember I said she had shown me a dress that she had drawn on well, she hadn't drawn the body part, she just sort of drew the dress and then explained that this was cream lace, this was white lace, and there was a V-neck. Like, she had all the words right. Maybe we've got a fashion designer in our midst. Who knows? Just never know where these kids go with their careers. Certainly is fun to watch. That should be enough glue in there. I sort of want to make sure we don't have a visible let's flip that over before I get too carried away and make sure that we're right where we need to be, which it looks like it is. And now, once again, have I got it up the right way? Yes. Oh, goodness me. Could you imagine? It's upside down, but it's not. Okay. That's really good. Really happy with that. And get some weight on it to dry. Will be really good. And by doing the two sides together, all in one go, you've got moisture pulling on both sides of that paper. So if you were to do one side and then leave it and come back to it, you might find it's buckled because the paper's being moistened and warping to one side. So you should always try and glue both panels on at the same time. So that way your paper in the middle, your sandwich, is moist both sides. So it's just a case of a bit of a trim now. And it'll be ready for the sewing machine in a few hours, which I might be able to do later tonight. What am I cutting there? I just have to be a bit careful. That's all right. Now I just need to decide about that edge because I have the opportunity to leave a bit extra length there because we had that selvage, and I'm thinking I might, because if we get quite carried away with our internal covers pages here, I won't fold it because you can't fold it until it's dry. Leaving that little bit there might be a good idea, and I can always put a piece of trim down there so it won't look like it's odd. I'm thinking I'm going to leave it for now. That extra little bit I think might come in handy. It's not exactly straight, but I think once I edge it with some lace, we'll be able to make it look like it's straight. So for example, that tab will be attached there, and we could run, like, not this lace because it's not wide enough, but I've got wider stuff. We could run a piece of lace down there just to finish off that tab being tucked in under there. So that'd just, you know, neaten that edge, but we'll get to that. I don't want to fiddle anymore with this. I can't really add the tab at this point. I just want to get it now sitting. Okay, everyone, I'm going to leave it at that. I think that's looking good. Happy with that. It's all come together okay. Lovely. Beautiful. All right, it's upside down, but that's okay. That's it then. All right, everyone, I will say goodbye. We'll let this dry, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye for now.